If you have been watching my videos for a while now, and for some reason you stuck around to the end, you know I always end my videos like, and I'll see you in the next One Piece. Now, to why that is, well, it's not a mystery, but rather a simple homage to my favorite literary work. And since last week, I can't help but to find parallels between One Piece and the situation we're in right now. Because honestly, I think PatMen's departure is similar to the moment when the Strawhat crew had to let go of Mary. Welcome to snstry, and today we're going at it with a different approach. If you're a One Piece fan, this is going to hurt. If you aren't, well, let me explain why dropping PatMen is basically setting fire to the going Mary. For everyone to understand the weight of it all, we need to discuss not what Mary was, but rather who she was for the crew. Remember how Luffy and the gang got the ship? It was given to them by Kaya after they saved her life. It was a very small ship. Needless to say, Mary was not built for the Grand Line. But for a crew of underdogs with big dreams, it was the perfect ship. The Straw Hat crew sailed into all kinds of adventures in the Grand Line. They faced giants, warlords, they even had an adventure in the sky. It was a journey where a ship that small had no business surviving. So the further they went, the more damage Mary took. The stress of those adventures started to create cracks in the ship that not even the greatest shipwrights could fix. And eventually, when they faced the big bad villain of the story, Mary finally reached its breaking point. But before she got totally wrecked, the ship still pulled off one final miracle to save the crew. And in the end, the crew gave Mary a Viking funeral, burning the ship so that it wouldn't have to suffer the loneliness of the dark ocean floor. And now if you think about it, it's kind of similar to how PatMen's journey with Paper Rex went. He was not the biggest free agent out there. He was a humble player coming from a small nation. He was not widely known, and when PRX signed him, many were scratching their heads asking questions like, who the hell is this guy? Or, is this really the guy that's taking us to the next level? But when stage 1 started, all of the questions stopped. Just like Mary finding its chemistry with the crew, PatMen proved that he was the missing puzzle piece this Paper Rex squad needed. He did his best to give this team something to stand on. When Paper Rex was in turmoil, he was the one that brought stability. He became the spine that this team desperately needed. Like Mary, PatMen gave his all for the ship to keep running smoothly despite the endless waves of opponents crashing down. And just like Mary's last hurrah, PatMen channeled his inner goat and showed us some of the coldest clutches Toronto has ever seen.
Just PatMen with everything to do. Around the corner, finds the first, the Hawk gonna be sent, re-swings, clears out lead, Prowler at the ready, tries in front, and PatMen!
It was off the back of those hero plays that Paper Rex managed to thread the needle and finally win their first ever international trophy. But after giving his all in Toronto, the grind of participating in the EWC followed. And then with no time to rest, they still had to fight it out at Champs. To put it simply, there was no time to adapt, no time to cook up new strats, and most of all, no time to recover. And entering Champs as the heavy favorites, all eyes were on them. They had targets on their back, and the pressure of it all was just too much for PatMen to take. All of this took a toll on him until finally, and much like Mary's fate, PatMen reached his limit and crumbled under the pressure. Now this brings us to the sad reality, because if PatMen is Mary, then the PRX fans is Usopp. Because like Usopp, we refuse to believe PatMen was at his limit. We are not mad about the decision because it was bad. We're mad because we simply couldn't just let go. We are blinded by sentimentality, and we couldn't care less about the flaws. We just remember the good times and wanted everything to stay that way. And that is exactly what's happening in the comments right now. Some of us are ignoring the stats, ignoring the drop-off, and screaming at PRX. Not only because we have yet to see how Invy would mesh with Paper Rex, but because some of us just want to save a memory. And I get it. As the most passionate fans in the Valorant scene, we cherish all the moments, may it be the good times or the bad. I mean, PatMen is getting replaced by another Pinoy talent, which if you think about it should be all good, but there's just something in the back of our minds yelling that something is just wrong with this. And I am excited to see what Invy would look like in a winning team like Paper Rex, but the thought of PatMen not being there anymore makes me feel like I just lost a close friend because he's moving to a different city. You just know that things are never going to be the same again. But let me know down below if you feel the same way or if we are just being over dramatic. I'm sure some of you will find it hard to move on, but the story doesn't stop. Even though PatMen's arc with Paper Rex is over, the journey lives on. In order to move forward, the Straw Hat crew needed to find a new ship. And for Paper Rex, they needed to find their new 5th player. And that's where Invy enters the conversation. And the question for many is, will Invy be able to do what PatMen did before him? And you might disagree with me here, but my answer on this is a big
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
no. But before you get tilted, hear me out first. I said earlier that PatMen served as the ship that stabilized what was back then a chaotic PRX mess. But Invy is a different player. My take on this is that he won't necessarily have to replicate what PatMen did, because for one, if PatMen is the Mary, then Invy is the Thousand Sunny. PatMen provided stability, but Invy is providing loads of Kuda bursts and other tech for the team. If PatMen was the stabilizer, then Invy is the amplifier. He's not here to steady the ship. Paper Rex signed him to turn up the chaos and unpredictability. I expect to see Paper Rex at a pace never seen before, moving so fast that no one will be able to keep up with their speed. But despite the promise of Invy, many are doubting what he can bring to the table. I see some in the comments asking, he's an upgrade for sure, but can he be the leash that restrains the core 4 like PatMen was? And other things like, sure he is better mechanically, but can he fit into the chaotic Paper Rex playstyle? Well, I can tell you now that there's going to be growing pains early on, as every new team does. But chemistry is built over time. It's built in the countless hours of practice. Add to that the personalities in the team. The core 4 won't have any issues with that, and I think Invy is a chill guy that would mesh well with the other personalities in the team. So all in all, it would take time, but we will get there eventually. Another thing to note is that like Mary, PatMen might have had a stabilizing factor, but like the Thousand Sunny, Invy has the tools of the trade. Like I said earlier, things like the Kuda Burst, Gaon Cannon, and all sorts of those other stuff, which basically means Paper X's firepower is going to be more disgusting. He is the upgrade that Alex decided on to not only survive the new meta, but also the treacherous waters of Pacific, because like the new world, the incoming new meta and VCT Pacific are full of dangers. Paper Rex are the reigning champions in Pacific, and the targets are still on their backs, even more so now that they chose to make an upgrade. So, in the end, we have to remember how the story of Mary concluded. As the ship was burning, its soul spoke to the crew one last time and simply said, "I was always so happy, all because of you." And I think that is the best way to look at PatMen's time with Paper Rex. His run was short, it was chaotic, and it ended abruptly. But for a brief moment in Toronto, he took a team full of chaos and helped to crown themselves as the kings of Pacific. He was the humble vessel that carried the W Gaming dream when nobody else believed it could float. He may not be the ship that takes them to the end of the line, but he was the ship that taught them how to sail through the storm. So, thank you PatMen for the stability, the comms, and the memories. As always, I'll see you guys in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed, hit that sub button so you don't miss out, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.